40 Dilemma book launch by Dr. Babalwa Maholwana. Tonight's theme is work-life balance. Our panelists, who are specialists, experts, also having had their own personal experiences as individuals. I like how there was a mutual feel and understanding that each woman here is a mother, whether it's to a biological child, whether it's to a child that is part of a blended family, or whether it's just to the next aunt, the next niece, the next nephew. Being an aunt, whatever role that you are, it always will boil down to you being a mother. This theme of work-life balance, what exactly to you as an individual? What is your definition and understanding of this concept? Chinese.
I can feel the silence in the room because you really think that I'm going to give you answers. I am battling as well. I am sitting here struggling to define this mammoth and complex synonymous words, a balance. But program director, maybe I should start off by saying that why I thought I should form part of a panel. It just felt right. It just felt so correct, and such an honor and a privilege. And that comes from reading Dr. Mab's book. You know, in even her introductory remarks, she mentioned authenticity. And I think that stands out. Because the world that we're living in is propelling us to be these imposters that life is good. There's a balance. I have arrived. I know everything. I do things by the book. But unfortunately, the moments where I am alone, this is a perception that people have formulated about this Chinese. So, the authenticity that comes out from this piece of material, which alludes to issues of being vulnerable, laying yourself bare. You know, there are days I wake up, I was saying that to Dr. Babs. I wake up, I want to pull my hair and scream and blow the top of the roof and tell the world that I am battling with a whole lot of things. So that's why I say, I'm probably going to disappoint you because you think that I've got answers when it comes to how to balance work, life, love. It's a very dynamic subject. But what makes us to look simple is how we're dark and diving, is how we are projecting this beautiful demeanor. It is not Chinese. Chinese is still that young girl at the end of each day who says that I have not even scratched the surface of balancing my family life. My family is dysfunctional. Our children are a mess. Work life is toxic. We are silent. I don't know if this is a reminiscent from the Bible that actually says even those who have sinned, but they did not do anything about what they have sinned, They are sinners themselves. Sithule was sucking up. Rightly so. We're striving to get this balance. Bills must be paid at the end of the month. The system itself even pushes us into because I must be the first one to get there. I must get my master's favor. I must be the flavor of the day. And I'm prepared to do that at the expense of my other colleagues. I'm battling with that balance. At home, I must wear a different face. Possibly nobody thinks that Umama is an executive, is in an executive role, she's got wisdom, she does this and that. Hello, we are still a normal human being who has taken strain in taking huge decisions that might have a huge impact within families and the generations beyond. That's what the workplace challenges are presenting to us. So, we still need to be lovers tonight. Funeka sibe active. Sithanda nini. If that's what you want to hear.
Authenticity, go ahead, ma'am.
Yes. Sibe vulnerable ke wethu nakwezi relationships zethu. Ngezimini ube ngu-superwoman. Ukhutshwe ecaleni uboniswe into yoba in fact you are not even half of what you think you are in this relationship. That's a serious dynamic. You think probably I'm the one I remember my senior at 40, possibly I'm in the line of age, possibly I'm the third, fourth eldest in the room. So, but be that as it may, I'm battling. I'm battling on the love front. I'm battling on the finding a balance in the family life, finding a balance in the work life. But my answer to your question, Program Director, is that I think what then helps is at least to be aware that you need to find a balance. And there are times that there'll be serious work demands. If, for instance, there is going to be an audit in various areas within the organization, that keeps everybody on her or his toes. So it's a myth to believe that no, but I must leave work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I see in Babs' book, she managed to design a system where she leaves work at 3:30. Lucky for her. So it's that balance becomes difficult. But we just need to be aware that at the end of the audit, I now have to balance things. I will take a break. I will listen to myself. I will be quiet. I will have a plan, and a plan is not to have a plan. So, for me, that is balance. But the whole concept of thinking that we will ace it, maybe some of us will empower us with tools, other than those that I think of, like a walk in the beach, some work in the garden, sitting in a dark room, having those reflections and quiet moments. Then, that then gives a clarity of mind, and in my own language, that is the balance. But work, unfortunately, never stops. Each year you say, this year, it's been rough. But next year, no, I'm going to tone down. I cannot be on the go all the time. It gets worse. So I am one of the people who are also here to listen and learn. Maybe the generation that comes after us have aced these things. So that's my narrative around balancing all this. Safe to say, we must have that balance. We must love. We must work. We must produce results. We must nurture our children. And that's going to possibly the other conversation that will come out tonight.
Thank you, ma'am. So already just from the theme, work-life balance, it is already unlocking a very personal sense of resonance. How does it resonate with you? In your work field, as an executive at home, it is still part of the process of we work for work, we work for the life, we work to love, we work to find the balance. And all these things put together, the key purpose that Dr. Babs will be speaking about still ought to be met. But at the end of the day, your holistic self requires a sense of balance, whether it's from work, whether it's from your personal experience, but it brings it home to who you are as a holistic individual. Mrs. Ngoma, if you could share with us on this theme as well, as it has already been unpacked from a sense of authenticity that has been brought by one of the tools, that being the After 40 Dilemma book, but also in your personal experience and in your field of work-life balance, in achieving a balance in life, a balance in loving, and a balance in maintaining that purpose.
I must say, when I was preparing for this, I was very challenged by the question because it's a very delicate, a very sensitive question, and in the context where really we live in volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, all of these things, and at some point they come to intersect in our lives because we really are juggling balls every day. We have to make choices every day, and we really have to keep things in harmony because when there's that disharmony, then there's no balance, if there is ever a balance. So I think I tilted the question. I was asking myself, is there a balance in it? Or do we have to wake up every day and make a choice as to what is important? What does my family need from me today? What does work need from me today? What do I need for myself today? And what do I offer to others today? So for me, with all that has been said, I think the question really awakens us to the reality that we must make choices because all of these balls are in the air. Which one do you catch, and why do you catch that one? Because really, in essence, you can't have all of them in one hand and think that you're going to make use of them appropriately. And I think also the other challenging aspect of it is the different roles that we have to play in our lives. I think the Chinese has said that, if you're a mother, I'll take in my case, I've got 3 children, different stages of their lives, and all of those are transitions. This year they were actually telling me, Mama, this year is like a big year for us in the family. I was like, okay, I've never thought of it that way. I'm turning 21. It's a matric year for my sister. She's turning 18. And apparently my son is the beloved. So I've now abandoned everyone. All the love is being given to my son. And they were telling me, do you know that he's actually turning double digits? And that was their translation. And if I look at that dynamic alone and the needs that they have from me as their mother, and the needs that they have from their father. And they're quite vast because it's career choices, it's our ability to give support so that, this year can be a success and a stepping stone into the future, for her. And for our son, she's discovering himself. So I don't know if there is a balance. And I am here to say that we create the balance because it's about what agenda do we have for the day. And another example I'd just like to make, Dr. Babs, when at some point you do talk about a pivot, and those are turning points. So one of the turning points in my life was when my dad passed, and when my mom passed, and I was really trying to move on from work at that time, from my employer at that time. And the choice that I had to make was what would be in the best interest of my family, in as much as this decision is about me and my career, but what does it mean? How is it going to impact my family? And I don't know if I made the best choice at the time, but those are the circumstances that actually informed the decision that I made to create that balance for my family. So we're trying to really weave, to make all of these points to intersect well. And if I were to use the analogy of a Venn diagram, we must just find that sweet spot to make sure that things work and that things don't collapse. You progress things, you serve purpose, whether it is for yourself, for your family, for those around you at work and so forth, but just find that spot to make things work, to keep them in balance, and you then choose differently the next day. And so for me, that's what would be my contribution. And I'm really saying that there is so much that's going on. And for us to try and strive for perfection, because balance is perfection. And I don't think there is that in life. Life is a strive every day. And those choices then, create the harmony in our lives, give us the sanity, give us, they keep you grounded. Because, of course, with every action, with every decision, with every choice you make, you must live with the consequences of that choice. So that would be my contribution, Sharon, to that question. It was a very challenging question for me.
Yes.
And I couldn't say this is what you must do or this is how it works. But really, how do you make your choices so that you continue to achieve the things that you want to do, to serve the purpose, and to really, really strive, to realize the goals and the objectives that you have. I think the one thing that you've also made in the book, Dr. Babs, was the fact that so you had all of these things that you're going through in your life, a whole lot, and I don't want to say that there was no balance in your life, but at some point you really, really were, you hit the bottom. I remember speaking about meeting the minister in your church, and you almost collapsed because, and the files were flying around, because he wanted to make sure that he catches you before you fall. And so my point, and for me that was so stuck, that things get to that point, sometimes not by choice, not because we're not striving to make things work, but in the course of navigating life, you found yourself there. So it is a very, very delicate thing, and also with the level of self-awareness that you had. I can't say it's because you were not trying to make things work, but it was just that the navigation, which was difficult on its own, took you there. I just think that it's a very, very challenging subject. So there are different roles that we have to play. We must be friends, wives, and I mean, my husband will tell you a whole lot. He complains every damn day. the fact that I don't know whether you are a wife to your work or a wife to me, you know. And I must say, I think about it every day because and it drives me to say, can I just really just give him that attention, you know? Because the more he talks about it, he makes me think and pause. What is it that I am not, you know, doing? He does, of course, understand. He's extremely supportive. I don't think I would have done and achieved what I've achieved without him in my life. But when I hear him talking about the fact that, you know, you come late every day, you don't sleep, but when you take care of yourself, and I don't think when he asks that question, he asks it to make me feel guilty, but he's raising a concern for me about my duty to care for myself. Yeah, I just want to leave it there, so that would be my contribution. It's a very difficult subject, but I don't think there's a balance, Sharon.
Thank you. So it's about finding the sweet spot, creating your own balance, and the circumstances that are imperfect, that will never be perfect, but you create within that imperfection, and it's all about your own balance that you have created. The sweet spot. That is powerful, Mrs. Ngoma. Indeed, just in how you've shared it with us, there is no answer. It is all part of the purpose of allowing it to unfold until you get to the point where you can say, I'm content enough in that authenticity which you touched on, Chinese. Thank you very much, Mrs. Ngoma. Zianda, from a clinical psychologist perspective, in defining this theme of work-life balance with the end objective of balancing life and love, what does it mean to you?
From the point of Uzianda. Sorry about that. From the point of Uzianda, I tend to shy away from the title of clinical psychologist. It sounds so professional. When it's mentioned, I look at the audience and I feel that I'm supposed to say something profound, which reading this book and being here, I don't have that profound answer. Instead, I'm learning myself, and I'm learning from the experience, and I'm learning to just add more to my pot. Personally, I subscribe to the philosophy of, if the hierarchy of what matters to me at that specific season is in order, then I feel that things are balanced. In life, there is always a main thing in a specific season of your life. And if there is congruency, then I say you are content, or I am happy, or I am content. Balance is having congruency to the priority area and getting it right, giving it the attention that it needs in that specific time or area in your life. Then everything is good if congruency is met. For example, if a new mother is on maternity leave, you have a newborn baby, then that is the priority. Remember, you can have a child, but you're also working, you're also a wife, you're also a friend, you also have social engagements that you need to be present for. However, you must give your most energy to the priority at that time. So balance is not finding a 50-50 split for me, but it's basically giving majority of your time and energy to what matters most at that season. Because should we fall for the trap of 50-50, then it means that you are losing yourself and taking strain, and later on, everything that matters in your life is going to be affected. It is finding harmony that allows congruency and achievement of the main goal. Remember, we are striving for a goal or a purpose in life. And part of the things that say, well done, Zianda, you're doing it right, is actually achieving it. So now, if I try to have a lot of things that I'm balancing, then chances are I'm not going to be successful in most of them. That is why I choose to have a philosophy to say focus on the main thing. Then if you focus on that, whether you give it 70 and the rest of the roles or the areas in your life you give them 30, it's okay. Whether you give them 90 and you find that currently in the season, my personal or love life is lacking, it's okay, because you've communicated, you've assessed, and you've come to a conclusion that right now, what matters for me is my husband, is my children, it's my work. Because should we put ourselves under the strain, then it means that we are never going to be satisfied. We are never going to be happy. As one of the panelists said, she said it's an everyday thing where you wake up and you say, today what is important? And sometimes it's making that sacrifice to say what I want versus what I want the most. You know? So give more energy to the bigger priority at that specific time. In my line of work, I've had to move away from emphasizing the word balancing because it creates a dilemma or dynamic. I move away because we get to think that everything, work and life, should have equal proportion, and it definitely should not. Balancing means sacrificing certain things while giving emphasis to the other based on the importance, the aim, and the purpose. We need to normalize that priorities are different, they're very unique, and they vary. We ought to know that our demands are shaped by our needs, and our needs give direction to how we balance work, life, purpose, and love. Our needs meet the balance when they are fulfilled, and that is okay. From the book, in my experience, I've learned that we need to challenge the stigmas and the pressures that our families, that our friends, that society gives us. Yo.
Too much.
You know, from reading this book, I actually, each time I turned, I said, it's okay. Because for me, it taught me that, you know what? It's okay not to do things in record time. There's a part in the book where she had a firstborn out of wedlock. And that's exactly what happened to me. It touched me because the guilt, the shame that I felt at that specific moment. Because I'm and what am I going to say to my parents, you know? And I'm a master's student at NMMU. I've got this big tummy. And it's like everybody's looking at me and judging me, you know? And all that was based on how society is. And I ended up putting so much pressure on myself. And I always say that should I have not put so much pressure on myself at that time, probably I could have graduated cum laude. You know? But I graduated with a beautiful daughter who's 12 years old today. And I believe that she's the most beautiful and most precious blessing in my life because she has shaped my life. She has contributed and determined how I balanced my life. Instead of thinking of me, I said, I need to push my academics because I need to feed this baby. So for me, it's basically, falling pregnant was not part of the plan. It's not the vision or how my parents taught me, you know? But I quickly had to snap out of it and say, at this season of my life, what do I need to do? It meant sacrificing friends. And I was like, if someone is my friend, then they should understand the season of my life, you know? You have to trust that the relationships or the foundations that you formed are what are going to carry you when you neglect. You know, if you come home late at night, I always say, Mao, I'm working for the kids and my family, but I know that marriage is a union of trust, forgiveness, and grace. I know He's going to give me grace. If I can't attend a friend's birthday party, I say the 10 years of our friendship should count in my favor right now. You know, I've failed 9 out of 10 times, and the 9, that's good. So if my friend is not going to understand why I didn't post her on her birthday, or why I didn't call, then that person should not be in my life. But if the person is my person, she'll understand that knowing her, there has to be something that needed to be balanced in her.
Definitely taking us to church.
So we say we want to balance and we put pressure on ourselves. I'm saying it's okay. It's okay to drop a few balls here and there. It's okay to say, wait, that one is not a glass ball. It's okay, come on. It's all bounce. It's a tennis ball, it will bounce and I'll catch it again. You know? Go easy on yourself. Forgive yourself. Give yourself a chance to fail and also learn from it. Because if you're going to say, I'm a village girl, when we went to fetch water, we would put our buckets on our head and try and balance it. Hey! It's a skill, that one, eh? And you need to make sure. Because now you can't hold it, but you must talk with your friends. This. Hey, but you know the neck, tension, muscle tension. All these things that we're trying, all these pressures that we're putting on ourselves, they're causing tension. You define what tension is for you. You know? And I feel that as psychologists, we're dealing with a lot of tension, stresses, depressions, anxieties, because we are just trying to be a perfect nation or perfect people, as the Chinese had said. And there's no perfection. So that is my philosophy. I always go with the needs. What is important right now? Okay, what is important now? I need to attend my kids. If I have to cancel, if I have to do this, then it's okay. You know? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Something that she strongly highlighted was what is important right now, and making the decision and the choice for yourself first. We're living in a society at a time where we're always putting other people first and we forget about ourselves. And then we turn around experiencing that tension because what you did for somebody else, having not expecting them to do anything in return at the time, but when you realize that they don't show up for you the way you show up for them, it's time for you to start showing up for yourself, for your own imperfect balance. And Dr. Babs, in this book, The After 40 Dilemma, you had to make choices and you had to make a decision to show up for yourself first. Because if you didn't show up for yourself first, you couldn't show up for Pinky in the book. You couldn't show up for the purpose. You couldn't show up for the love and for the life that you've given, the grace that you're now operating in now. Share with us work-life balance.
So I wouldn't be an author if I didn't quote from my book.
Of course.
Myself. And I quote. But seriously, and I'll say a little bit more about what the book is about in its totality. But I'm going to read 1 or 2 excerpts that will start looking at this more broader in terms of some of the dilemmas that I faced. I've got an excerpt here from page 30 where I felt that as a black single mother who had inadvertently postponed her reproductive career because I had to smash every corporate glass ceiling, I had paid for all my sins. This, however, is the endless mystery of our postmodern human existence. While the social being has infinite potential to choose from diverse experiences, our physical beings remain confined to these finite, ailing and failing bodies. Betty, it's as if I knew you'd be here. I will never forget the tragic story of one of the most endearing hiring managers from my early career. She turned 37 during her first maternity leave. Shortly after resuming work, she started with a slight cough while feeling vaguely unwell on a corporate weekend away. She casually mentioned consulting a physician for antibiotics and planned to return to work in a few days. By the end of that week, she had undergone major lung surgery with a working diagnosis of stage 4 cancer. Her funeral was within the same year, and her baby girl had just started walking. Of course, my situation is vastly different. Having Pinky at the infancy of my career turned out to be a blessing. My subsequent reproductive decisions had to enable both her and my career to thrive. For a long time, I convinced myself that I did not want more children. This was true until I met someone I wanted to marry for the right reasons and have children with. If only my finite, over 40-year-old body would just simply comply with my infinite freedom. Spoiler alert, it didn't. I've got another excerpt from page 32 where I talk about how therapy for single parents often feels like an indictment. You're indicted for staying, working, and trying to balance both. And by single parenting, I mean parenting without a legally enforced co-parenting agreement. And it often means working twice as hard to provide half as much. If you think the politics of working women has evolved since the 1950s, think again. Add to this the complexities of being a corporate executive, a frequent traveler, and a single mother. Public participation, such as being a class mom or attending every recital, becomes a logistical impossibility. Meanwhile, the adolescent years demand deep, meaningful conversations that often clash with our professional obligations. So I'm gonna try to go back to what resonates with what has been said. And maybe point out a few things. So we spoke about the realities of the work environment. And there's some young people in the room, I think, who call everything toxic. Like as long as it does not, it's toxic. I shy away from blanket statements because those things don't mean the same thing to all of us. And to Chinese point, when there's an audit, there's an audit. And your audit usually means you're licensed to operate. There will not even be a toxic work environment if there is no workplace to begin with. What I learned in that experience, so where I describe how I had crafted a rhythm for myself, and no, I didn't stop working at 3 Chinese. I just stopped taking meetings at 3. And I learned to teach people how to treat me. That's exactly the term. That's the magic term. So it is about boundaries. It is about drawing those boundaries for yourself that suit you so that you can prioritize, so that you can literally handle that one day at a time. So the example in question, or the example that was cited, is at a time where I had a reporting office in Dubai, who luckily started 2 hours earlier. And I have this teenager who needs me to be present, to be able to have these DMCs, deep meaningful conversations. And one day the penny dropped. that if I were to battle four-ways traffic, my F, I call her my F, but F knows about this. You either leave four ways by 6 a.m. or after 8:30. Forget about anything in between. Is that if I could leave home at 6, I could actually do the physical drop-off myself and not rely on the school transport. And I'm gonna use those 15 to 20 minutes as our magic connection time to brief, to pray, to prepare for the school day. Because again, to your point, so this is a day at a time thing. And if I've dropped her off by 6:15, I will make it to the office in Sandton by, at the very latest, 6:45. What that meant is that come 7 o'clock, I'm ready for Dubai. Dubai has got my full attention between 7 and 9. Come 9 o'clock, I've actually got time for people. And this is one of the things that I discovered in my leadership journey, is that as I grew and found my purpose, was that as I grew in leadership, my business was no longer the technical business. So I was not about the clinical research, I was actually about people. That was my primary stakeholder, which meant that I could craft my day in such a way that between 9 and 12, I've got time for people. I look people in the eye, I engage in conversation, I sharpen my listening skill, I solve my problems. I had the second largest team after sales in a pharmaceutical company. And I always said that my job was fascinating in that I could never fall asleep because the fire could come from anywhere. And I can't predict that. But if I'm there and I'm able to serve my immediate managers, then my immediate managers are going to handle the people. I learned that HR and everybody who's in a corporate environment will know now that more and more HR, in fact more and more HR will be outsourced and there'll be 1 or 2 people left because it's a back office function, and those are people who don't know anything about people, just by the way, because I mean, people are your operations. Nonetheless, I learned that I could partner HR versus HR being my partner. I could partner HR in saying, guys, I will only bring to you the things that I can't solve. And therefore I empowered my managers. So, and I did things that had not been done previously, and that's how I started setting those boundaries, because it was also about freeing up my time to do the important work, which was taking care of my people. And then meetings, etc., all of those nice things, whatever, thereafter. But I found a way that worked, that could pacify all of my stakeholders at the same time, and actually thrive while empowering people to be their best selves. We came to a point where people used to say, Babs, you're such a people whisperer that we should actually have a couch in your office, because people come in here and leave feeling better. And that's when I knew, and how I knew that I was in my purpose. I really do want to come to Zianda's point, because, and this is what I gathered, especially from this journey, and there's a lot of evolution in the work-life balance concept, in that it's moved from balance to integration, and recently I learned of the alignment concept, to say that alignment is about the alignment of the priorities for that particular season. What matters for me right here, right now. And that's why the book has given me an opportunity to chronicle really all of those transitions in my life, and all the dilemmas that have come with those transitions, so that I could make pivotal decisions. However, recognizing at the same time that with each decision, there's always a trade-off. And what does that trade-off entail in terms of the consequences of that decision? And this book is a lot about consequences. I try to say it's not a cautionary tale, it's not that dramatic. Guys, it's not that deep, really. But it really does highlight the point that has been made here, to say that this balance is an illusion, just like perfection is an illusion. Because we chase and we chase and we chase, and at the end of the day, you collapse, as was my case. I've got a whole chapter dedicated to burnout in the book, because I am a survivor of burnout, and it's something that I continue to be so watchful for. And I think somebody did mention self-awareness. It was Yuzian, if I'm not mistaken. This is something that I've discovered for myself is everything, or at least a starting point. Because self-awareness means that you know those thresholds, you know when you are approaching them, you know when you start losing your temper, and you know that, there's an interview I did with INX Prime where I quote what my daughter would always say, and I think it's in the book as well, I'm not sure, but she would always say, "You must be stressed at work, because I know it wasn't me." But then I also talk about, in that interview, it's not in the book, that one of the best pieces of advice that my daughter has ever given me, at that time she was 4, and I'll get home and I'll be like, "Can I just get 30 minutes just to shut my eyes?" And she'd be like, "Why?" I'm like, "No, but I've got this headache. I just need to get it out of the way. I don't want to take medication for it, because then I'm going to end up taking meds every day." Or wine. Guys, please don't drink alone. There's just something not right. So I would tell her about these headaches, and she said, "But why?" I'm like, "But I work so hard." And she said to me, "But Mommy, why don't you sometimes just work softly?" And at that time, what I did not recognize was the wisdom in that statement, and what working softly actually means. And part of that is that self-awareness that goes back to you even understanding your own rhythms. So I've recently discovered also that some of us are workhorses that are just designed to work. But then the system is such that we work for 10 months, and then we're like, "Hey, December 5 It's because we only wait until the end of the year to take a break. And working softly, I've discovered, is about working, taking a break. Working, taking a break. Working, taking a break. I've been able to cope from simply Friday nyana here, Monday nyana there. Like, I make my own long weekends. And for me, that time for self-reflection is so important. And just the last bit on the self-awareness is that understanding yourself to the extent of understanding what your DNA makeup is. I'm one of those kids who got over stage fright at the age of 4. In my family, they never used to hire entertainment. I did the modeling, I did the singing, I did the praise poetry. I imagine my surprise when I discovered, close to the age of 40, because I was doing the deep work then, that I'm actually an introvert. And I was like, "What?" I said to the coach, "Whatever do you mean?" Because I'm like, I speak to thousands of people and I really don't mind. And then she said to me, "So where do you gain your strength?" And I said, "In my bath." She said, "Exactly." So knowing our rhythms and knowing where to get our strength back, and this is why I love walking on the beach. Like if I go home and I simply put my feet on the sand, and as I described in the book, whether it is the beach or I actually go home back to my roots in Lower Zimbabwe, where the soil is like red crimson and it's crumbly and it's clay, and I literally touch the ground. I feel so grounded. I feel so centered. I feel like I can draw myself back to myself. I'll stop there for now.